Hi everyone. I'm working on a series of videos that have to do with finding your personal icons. And what I mean by that is that we each have archetypal tendencies to pull things into our orbit that matter to us. In this first video, I am using rocks as the example because I have been collecting rocks for a long time, and I'm fascinated by the geology, the history that is wedged between some of the layers of these rocks, some more ocean artifact fossils, and it makes me think about what these pieces of history went through to get to be the shape they are, or to have the markings that they have. And I reflect on that as I work. And I also use the shape very freely in my work as one of my personal icons. And I am going to show you some of those pieces following looking at some of these rocks a little more closely. This one is almost like a piece of charcoal, and I also use rocks to grind them down and make pigments out of. So I have an ongoing and ever-growing relationship with the stones because they connect me to the land, and that's something that I really feel strongly about. If I move from place to place, or if I visit a new place, I like to observe what the land has to offer, and often, if it isn't too invasive, I might take home one of these lovelies. So I'm going to show you 4 pieces that I have done that have shapes similar to stones. To me, stones also represent a place, and the whole idea of building a cairn as a symbol of having visited a place is part of that whole thinking I use for this type of work. So, but the shapes can, the shapes can be circles of varying organic elements. They can look like leaves. They can just be mimics of other collected things like metals that I've added to my collection. And in the case of this piece, I was noting that the sentiment I felt as I was working on it, stitching, was to gather. And I think that each of us can bring a very personal outlook to our artwork as we thoughtfully consider gathering the things that represent us the best. So just wanted to show you that. This is a bigger piece, eco-dyed with indigo and rust, and I have drawn with stitch 2 large circles, ovals that look like rocks to me. Also building a cairn, another more graphic looking rock, and then along the sides I have used a stamp that I made, sort of a primitive tribal design that also mimics a rock, and I've used it to feature different elements of cloth that just struck me as I was working. Lace on this side, and I have some stitching, and then at the bottom rocks that have tumbled down and lay on the ground. Here's another one that's just stitched, and then all the blue ones. And it just is capturing for me a moment in time when I am thinking about what I want to imbue into this piece as I work on it. This is another piece that is actually a story about a gathering of global students, and I use the circular form to illustrate the students, and each one is very, very different. And it is an example of how rocks are no two identical and how they all come together and bring something of value to a gathering. So I have another group of them over here on the side. I think the group was so big I had to count how many rocks I needed for this. And again, the circular motif up here, semicircle, and some more graphic counterpoints down here. I use that to sort of give me the idea for these diagonal stitches. Okay, and these are all done on repurposed cloth, old linens and whatnot. This piece is a story about the synchronicity of my two daughters having babies at the same time. And they were on opposite sides of the world. And I was trying to illustrate that. But as you can see, once again, the orb shape, the ovum shape, is prevalent in this piece. And the water element here divides the space between the two shorelines that they were living on. And I have many references to rocks in the stitching shapes, the embroidery piece, the crochet that I added here, just all over. And I feel like these, along with the story that I tell through the pieces or capture from my own memory, are more personal and more authentic because I am using my personal icons and my narrative as I go along. And I have a quote that I am just going to read the beginning of, but I will put it into the comments, and along with a link to more about archetypes if you're at all interested. Besides the intellect, there is a thinking in primordial images, in symbols which are older than historic man, which are inborn in him from the earliest times, and eternally living, outlasting all generations, still make up the groundwork of the human psyche. And if we connect ourselves back to these things and we appreciate what is right in front of us and how we can learn from it and also incorporate it into our art, we will have some very meaningful outcomes from that. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time with another icon.